Is it live?
Yep.
Oh, hi everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. Today is kind of a double stream. We're doing, the first half is kind of talking about how to take something from grayscale to color. I had someone ask me this, and I figured a few others might be interested in how, because it's more than just one way to go from grayscale to color. It's more than just the color blend mode. And I'll show you another one that my friend Key has been using and showed me, and it's a more, I would say, radical way to add in colors, but it can create some cool color combinations that you might not have worked with before. So as we start off all of these CG Cookie live streams, we asked if you put where you're watching from in the questions, and then we will do shout outs while I finish the marketing and people can file in so they don't miss anything. And then, oh yeah, the other half was we're going to announce the contest winners. So probably around 3-ish Central Time, we will get that going. And overall, I was very, very, very impressed with not only the amount of entries, but the creativity in the entries. And it was kind of hard picking them. The crew had some, I would say, scattered ones that they were picked, but I would say there was one for sure that was consistent throughout. And I'm really excited to announce that winner today. So stay tuned for that later, and we will go ahead with the shout outs. Joe?
All right. Shout out time. Bunko says this is my favorite afternoon show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Tuyushin says, Ciao from Serbia. I think that's Ciao. It's probably not Ciao. I'm going to say it's Ciao. Anna says, hello and good evening from Austria. Andrew says, hello from Denmark. Andrew McKinney says, Pennsylvania greetings. Chris says, today's evening class got canceled, so hey from Austria. Yay, so excited even though I didn't get my bunnies done in time. I'm going to upload them whenever I get around to finishing them. Haha, like next winter or something. Well, I was correct. It is Ciao. Tito says hello from the core of Treasure Planet. Neil says hello from Canada. Shall I put down my pencil and plug in the Wacom? You do you, man. Zebu says hello and good day from the Netherlands. Katie says hi from Indiana. Jimo says hi and happy Star Wars Day from Michigan.
May the 4th be with you.
Audrey says America. Or ... America. Kenan says hello from Japan. Wow, all the way over from Japan. Jeez. Fieldgore says hello from Brazil. Valerie says hi from Switzerland. Carol says hello from Portugal. Laura Schmidt says hello from Germany. Valerie says hello from Russia. Astrid says hello from Norway. Jonathan says aloha from Nevada, USA. Caroline says hi from Brazil. 2.0 says hello from Vienna. Sam says howdy from Texas. Richie says hello from New York. Christine says greetings from Sweden. Jonathan Allen says Nevada, USA. Jasadesky says hi from New Caledonia.
New Caledonia.
Micah Tisdale says, hey guys, I missed you. And Bunko says hello from Brazil. Jerome says hello from, yeah, I know. Like, there's like 2 more.
Okay.
Ellen says hello from Sweden, and Rita says hello from Portugal. And that's all.
Wow, that was a long one. I feel like I've never beaten you at doing the marketing post before you do the shout outs. I was done like 15 seconds ago. I was like, I guess I'll just wait here. What else do I do? Just watch myself on the computer. All right. Officially, hi everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's -5 GMT if you're watching outside the States, which it seems like a lot of you guys are, which is awesome. Today we are going to split the live stream into 2 parts. And I guess first, hi, I'm Tim Von Rieden, and I'm joined by Joe Chico as the moderator.
Hi.
We're going to split this live stream into two parts. The first part is going to be me showing you how to take something digitally from grayscale to color. This is something that I was asked recently, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to do a live stream on it rather than just send this one person a step-by-step on how to do it. And I recently learned another way to go from grayscale to color, so I will show both ways. And I will first sketch out something. I decided to do a life drawing. I haven't really done one in a while, but I won't be drawing a person. Originally, I was going to draw this doll, and I have a sketch of it. I'll show you it in a second, but I didn't realize, I don't think it's that creepy. But then when I started drawing it, it kind of came across more creepy than I wanted it to. And I was like, if anyone actually does have, if they're like afraid of dolls or mannequins or marionettes or whatever, clowns, like it might be kind of a creepy stream. So instead, I chose a more lovable looking skeleton guy. This, I don't know what his real name is, but I call him Major Tom. He's one of my 3A toys, and I think he's a perfect subject matter if I just crop off like the profile, because he has some sharp angles, we have different textures going on, and there's a lot of shapes, especially with this rounded helmet cap. So I'm going to be doing, I'll set him up here, because I also think it's good to draw from life. As great as it is to use reference from photos online, drawing from life is something that you get to feel the experience. Usually that is more associated with like when you're outdoors. Like I went to a pond last year, and it was to kind of get reference for this pond drawing that I did, my chase illustration. And it was actually being there, having that presence of being there. Like you pick up things that you normally wouldn't, like the smells, the warmth. And this one is definitely a more toned down version, but even with them here, I can move them slightly. I can adjust my lighting because I have these ridiculous lights on either side that I can mess with. I can actually see the material and texture if I go really close up. So having the thing in person, whatever you're drawing, is a cool study to do because then you can kind of see it more on an analytical level. Okay, and then the second half is we are going to be announcing the Battered Bunnies contest. This is one of, actually this could be my favorite contest we've thrown on CG Cookie to date. We had over 170 entries, I believe was the number. And it was cool seeing the entries on Instagram and Twitter, and people were using the hashtag, so that was awesome. I think this definitely leads into the future premise of having a canine contest, which was the gang opposite of the Battered Bunnies. So that will be something that, I don't know if it will be for the summer contest, but something definitely that will stay in our mind banks. I'm pretty sure the summer one will do more of a fun, whimsical one again, since this one was more kind of gritty. All right, so I'm going to stop talking so much. Oh, and really quick though, the announcements. Pretty much with CG Cookie, Joe did finish his perspective course, but we'll give you more information on when that is to launch. After this workshop is over for me, I have a lot of things lined up, and a few of them involve a lot of courses going from traditional or digital art to sculpting. Me and Lisa, the instructor over at Sculpt Cookie, we have been doing some collaboration work, and I'm really, really excited to show you what we started off with, because we're starting kind of simple, and then I'm hoping to do like really big, bold, crazy things. I would love to turn one of my pencil sketches into a clay physical form. That would like be amazing. And Joe got a Cintiq Companion recently, and I have my Cintiq 22-inch that I got a month ago. So we decided we're going to do like a compare and contrast video, just because I think it's interesting to see what are the pros and cons of each. How comfortable is the size working with each of the way that we work as artists and things like that. So I'll look forward to that and a few other things. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it because we have limited time here. So I'm going to share. And from last week, I learned, or 2 weeks ago, I learned that you guys like seeing the whole screen. So I'm going to share my Cintiq screen. I feel like I haven't been using this as much because of the workshop. I feel like I'm more comfortable with the tablet. So I'm going to challenge myself, and I'm going to only work on the Cintiq today.
Oh God!
So, as you can see, this was the start of it. I decided that this is too creepy, so I will not be working with that one today. And then I'm going to start a new file here. Okay, let me adjust the Cintiq though, so it's kind of sitting closer in my lap.
I think the creepiest thing about that doll though isn't the way that it looks. Granted, that's really creepy, but it makes that like creepy like sound when you pick it up.
Oh yeah, because it has the music player in it.
Yeah, like that.
Oh.
That freaked me out.
This was the other thing I want to show you guys is I recently got this ergo stand. I know you guys probably can't see all of it. Let me move this. So this is an ergo stand. It was recommended to me by one of my friends, and so far I have been loving it. Essentially, it allows you to move your Cintiq into a position and it holds it. And that's if I wanted it really high for whatever reason, if I'm standing. Or like right now I'm going to be sitting in my chair, so I want it kind of in my lap. It's like nestled here, and I can just work on it like this. So far, I actually have no complaints with the Ergotron arm. I'm only really in a week and a half into kind of testing it out, but so far I really like it. And for I think it was $150. I don't even think it was that much, maybe $130. I'd have to double check on that. But this was a great investment for the Cintiq. If this is something that you're interested in, I would definitely look into getting one of these arms as well. All right, so anyways, I'm gonna put this in my lap here. Okay. Okay. So today I think I'm gonna be working with the chalk brush. I feel like that's my go-to as of recently. Let's see here. I had to restart my computer, so some of my menus are off the screen. Got to get them back on. Okay. And even getting comfortable with the Cintiq has definitely been a learning experience. I was so used to using the tablet that I guess this has been something that I have to kind of adapt to. Okay. All right, I think I'm ready. So I'm going to first start off with a simple kind of outline sketch of this Major Tom character here. And as I'm doing that, if you guys want to ask any questions about what I'm doing. Oh, actually before that though, hold on. I'm going to lay out a pretty neutral base here to start off with. I'm going to make this really small first. Because since I'm specifically working in Grayscale and I kind of want the values to be kind of a focus of what I'm working on today, I want to work on a neutral base so that I can push the highlights where I want to push them and I can push the shadows without having to compensate on a white background. Because if a highlight was on, let's say, the rim of the image, we wouldn't necessarily be able to see it as well on a white background, but on a gray background, it would definitely be separated quite well. And I want a slightly textured gray background. I've recently kind of noticed that I have been working far too clean for my own liking in terms of starting off a piece and having it kind of act more fluidly as I go throughout. So I've been working more on like a sketchy pattern here for the background. All right, so now I feel like I can go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm going to use the chalk brush. Or you know what? I am going to mix it up. I'm going to try using this strange metal brush. I'm going to make it really small to start our etching out here. And for this first kind of rough pass sketch, I'm just going to try to block out the shapes, get a feel for the shape language that this guy has going on. The reason I really like the 3A toys with the not only the way that they do their clothes, but even the way they do the skull faces, they're always very angular. It's never like a smooth looking skull. It's a boldly shaped looking skull. So I'm going to work with that here. All right, so yeah, if there's any questions, I will just keep kind of doing this rough pass doodle first here.
Okay. Tujel says this one has +9 upvotes. It says, I was afraid the doll was too creepy, so here's a skeleton.
So here's a skeleton?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He also wants to know, what are the benefits of adding a natural gray to your fully colored pieces?
What are the benefits of adding a natural gray to your... Oh, actually, that is something that I used to be very, very adamant about. So adding a neutral gray will make the other colors and the other hues and saturation around that gray more vivid just through the contrast. So I made kind of a big deal about integrating neutral gray. It was like my favorite color to use because let's say, all right, so say you have this very bold and vibrant red. If you wanted to make this look more saturated, essentially you would add, well, it's kind of tough to tell on a neutral gray background. If I made the entire background red, and then if I added a gray to a good percentage of it, it would just make that red look more vibrant by contrast. So I think it's a very good thing to have gray kind of integrated throughout, and not just gray, I should say more neutrals. I think I'm more of a neutral advocate when it comes to making your other colors look more vibrant just by contrast alone.
Eric asks, have you ever been passionate about something and later on the passion died because you didn't give enough attention to it?
Oh yeah, I think that happens often. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing if it like constantly happens all the time, but no, I don't think that's a bad thing. And yes, that has happened.
Alexa says, hey, first time in a long time that I've been able to watch the stream live because of college and classes. I'm so excited to be back. Well, welcome back.
Yeah, awesome.
Mika asks, when printing out my picture, how do I keep it the same way I made it?
Oh gosh, that's a more loaded question for the time I have. There's a lot of things that you should do to prep your image for print when you are getting ready. The main thing is usually when you're working in RGB, and even right now, let's see, what are we working in? We're working in RGB because we're working in a digital format, and RGB is the best for digital. But if you're doing print, you want to be working in CYMK because that's how the printer will process the color handling with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So that's the first thing you should do is change your image to CMYK, but then you'll notice how that will affect the colors in your image, and you're going to have to do some color correction on your own. And not only that, some printers just can't print such like vivid, bright colors, so you have to be careful. But if you have a really nice printer, you're getting them printed at a legit print house, then you should be okay. But I would always do some test runs. I always lower the contrast just by like 10, let's say 10% or 10 points on the levels of contrast. So I'll go to image, adjustment, brightness, contrast. Oops, it's on my other screen. Let me pull it over. So I usually turn this down by like 10. And then typically I'll also look at my levels because, let me pull that one over too. Because typically things that will slightly print darker. That's why I turn the contrast down, but also the output levels, I'll usually go to about 5. And that means all the output levels of the values from 0 to 5, where it's like pure black, it gets kind of taken out of your image. It'll add a lighter value to it, so it pushes it just a little less black. Something that I kind of learned with this whole doing con seasons and how to handle your files.
Cisco Punch 67 asks, Tim, how do you feel about gradient tools like in Sketchbook Pro, where you select an area, you use the fill tool, and then you have a choice of a circular gradient or linear?
I'm going to be doing some of that color adjustment after I do the grayscale pass. So yeah, I don't think there's a problem with it. I think any way that you add in your colors, it's just part of the process.
I'm gonna say I know a lot of artists that use lasso and then they gradient with the lasso, and then that's like how instead of using a brush, that's what they do.
That's how Key usually does it.
Audrey asks, I'm currently in art college and I see so many online artists who are so much better. It wouldn't bother me except they are much younger, 12 to 15. I feel like I did something wrong at that age and I missed a chance to be as good as them. How do I get over this?
I feel your pain. I wasn't even introduced to Photoshop and using a tablet till I was 19. And now I look at like there's kids in high school, or even I get comments from like uh, the last one I think I got was a 13-year-old, and she was asking about something with working on the tablet. And I just thought to myself, man, if I had a tablet when I was 13, would I have adopted it as well as this new generation? Because they're really adapting quickly to it. So I don't think it's a thing of, I mean, it's a tough call because I do feel like I was unfortunate where I wasn't given this at a younger age, where I feel like I would have adapted into picking up the software or being more comfortable with the tablet early on. But if you're determined enough, it really doesn't matter. You just gotta, kind of pick it up from whatever level you are currently, and just run from there.
Fieldgoer says it's funny. I'm trying to work in Grayscale to color right now. I'm having many problems with my forms, especially lighting. I get stuck often and go crazy with shading, and things never look as 3D as they should.
Usually it's a problem with your lighting. Typically, if your lighting is inconsistent or you didn't like define the light source or early on, that's where it can get kind of chaotic as you try to go about adding these values later on. So a good chunk of advice would be during your foundation stage, really make sure that your lighting feels accurate to what you want in the end result. So for like this guy, I'll have the light coming from this general direction because that's where the sun is coming outside through my window. So I'll have a lot of the lighter values sort of like on this.
Tim?
Those lighter values are consistent with each other wherever there's cast shadow. So like on this side of the nose, it'll be darker just because of that cast shadow. And if there are any inconsistencies, that's where it starts to look a little muddled or a little messy. And you have to be like hyper aware of how light is falling on everything if you really want to add in an accurate looking light source.
That was weird. On my screen, you hiccuped.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's still good, right? Or I think it's back to normal. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's just like you didn't say anything in response, so I was like, "Oh, did we lose him again?" Valerie asks, "Could you recommend some artistical motivational YouTube channels? I'm feeling down all the time because I'm on the first stages of an art journey, and my art really sucks. I know it will pass and everything will be better, but it's pretty depressing right now."
Don't say your work sucks. You definitely don't want to see your work in a bad light because then it'll be really hard to start seeing it in a good light. But yes, I have been, for whatever reason, this week I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I watched Peter Moorbacher's One Fantastic Week yesterday. I watched a lot of how to be a better traditional artist tutorials last week just because I'm starting this traditional course in about a week and a half, and I want to pick up any pointers that I don't know myself. And I learned quite a bit already about graphite versus charcoal in the traditional world, and I didn't even know there was a big balance there. But in terms of motivational YouTube people, the number one person I would recommend is Bobby Chu. I feel like his videos are just for that case almost exactly of like self-help or motivating or tips on how to stay motivated. So I would definitely recommend him. There's plenty of YouTube video or artists that have more focus on what they're working on, but they still like to talk about their opinions. And even like Cynics, I would say some of his videos give kind of a more realistic approach to how he does his digital work. But I would say my number one would have to be Bobby Chu.
My number one would be Will Terrell. Go check out Will Terrell. I'll be posting links after the stream to all of these pages, so that way you can check those out. Oh, yep, and Laura Schmidt says try and look up Will Terrell. He's really motivational. Mark Kistler is apparently another one. Oh man, there's just people are just replying to it, and just like tons and tons of artists to go check out. Nix asks, I was wondering how would you take a grayscale image and make it a bright and colorful image? Think Pixar type of bright. Whenever I see grayscale to color done, the end image still has a gray feel. I'm making a children's book cover and I'm struggling.
I will definitely show you how to do that. Because I agree, sometimes when you just rely on the color blend mode or the layer and just changing the blend mode to color and then adding your color, it can still look pretty rough in terms of the color. It looks kind of laid on top, and you don't want that. You want it to feel more organically colored. So the way that I'm going to be doing this is not only am I going to add the color through that blend mode, but I'm going to also do some painting on top, because I believe it takes more than just one layer to create a colored version of a grayscale image. So I'm at the point where I'm going to now have a solid base. So I just put the neutral gray in everywhere. And before I go into color, I am going to add in values. Now this is usually the point that people get kind of screwed up with, because when you're adding values, you want to focus on contrast and where the light would fall. So in this case, I'm going to actually put, I'm going to put kind of a value scale. I don't want to do pure white or pure black though. Just so I have that there. And I'm going to go ahead and add some of these values in before we go and do the color part. And when I'm doing this, you also have to take into account the material itself, because even on this Major Tom character, he has this hood on here, and the top part is like this pasty white color, where the side here is more of this orange. So just because I've done this enough times, I know that this orange should be a darker value to even start with. Something like this. So even before I really add in any of the light. And then from here, I then look at, okay, well, how is this light falling on? And I might even use some of a soft brush here, because the light source is really coming from that side angle here. Then we got some stress wrinkles on top of, I'm going to zoom in just a touch, on that fabric. So essentially, I'm just going to go around this entire piece and add in the values where I see them landing. And I'm trying to be pretty consistent with my shadow value. I'm not trying to have a crazy amount of gradients yet.
You're at about 15 minutes.
Okay.
For the first half an hour. All right, Philip says, glad I finally got to stream, or I got to a stream. Is there a difference between graphic design and art in general? People tell me it's more of a logo and commercial thing instead of drawing and illustration.
Typically, yeah. When I think graphic design, it could also mean like on the website of a big company, they have to do the graphics for that. But typically, yeah, it's not so much doing like concepts, especially in terms of like doing character concept art or stuff. You're definitely being more focused in a different manner. I mean,
Yeah, you actually do make banners.
yeah, and
You do a lot of brochures and banners and stuff, and like magazine work, right?
yeah. Or what are those? The billboards on the roads that you see?
Yeah.
Or heck, even things that you see on commercials sometimes that might be what a graphic designer does.
Yeah. Definitely logo design though.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew McKinney asks, maybe it's too early to ask, but when might we expect the summer contest?
Even though the spring one literally ends today for announcements. Probably mid-July if I gave kind of a ballpark estimate.
And no, we don't know what the topic is yet.
No, that's true. I should have known
before not asks. Cold's pated full. Is that how you say that? Wants to know if they could see the brush that you're using.
Yeah. So this is. Oops. Let me make a new layer. This is my skin brush that you can download at cgcookie.com. Essentially, I like using this when I want to have some texture, but I don't want it to be a complete soft edge brush because I like that the soft edge brush has a nice blending feel to it, but it can make things look blurry quite quick. So I think with the skin brush, it's my compromise of still having some texture to it, but it has a very easy to blend nature just because of the edge that it has.
Can you show the settings on the brush?
Oh yeah. Oops, where am I? So shape, scattering. Actually, I don't know why shape dynamics are turned on. Oh, maybe that's why it's been so weird. Usually I keep the minimum diameter at 100%, so I just work with the size. But if you turn it down, I guess. Oh, my Cintiq, it's on soft right now, so I can barely even tell. And then transfer turned on, and I usually work at 100% opacity at all times.
Shouldn't bin Slada? I probably said that wrong. It says Peter Markenbacher is one of my favorites. OMG.
Yeah, he actually went to the same school that I attended in Illinois, and he is friends with my roommate, and I see him from time to time at cons. He honestly has been a big inspiration for me of kind of setting the trend of having original art, not only be profitable at a con, but be very successful at a con. And I think he's been kind of a trailblazer for those that want to do more original art at conventions, or that's how the artists kind of want to market themselves, and it's what they want to focus on. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for Peter. And if you don't know his work, his Angelarium stuff is fantastic technically. I think he has some of the strongest visual narratives in terms of his technical prowess with like lighting and adjusting colors. And usually with almost every angel, he has a nice flow to his pieces. There's usually a nice path that your eye can travel on just based on the image that he's created in terms of like the pose that the angel is in, or the clouds in the background, how they kind of form around a pre-directive curve. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Rio asks, I feel very uncreative as an artist. So how do I train creativity and more imaginative?
How do I train creativity? You have to make yourself be put in situations that are abnormal to what you do on a day-to-day basis. Hold on, my boss just messaged me. He just ate the only thing I had at the studio. That guy. Um, what was it? Oh, to be more creative, you have to put yourself in situations that you normally wouldn't. So go outside, do something, go to a coffee house, try drawing people live. I think there's a lot of just like things in nature. So go on a bike trail, go for a walk near a park, try to draw a tree that you find unusual that has like twisted, gnarly roots in the forest. You know, like put yourself in situations that you wouldn't normally do on a day to day, and spark creativity usually will spark that way. Or it'll just find you if you are looking for it. Because usually the way I feel like I can find creativity anywhere, at like a grocery store even. And you just have to be looking for it. So while you're out and about, while you're doing your thing, look at interesting shapes or patterns or colors or shape language, anything. And it doesn't have to be something that's obviously inspiring. Like I think movies or video games are like obviously inspiring, but don't write off things of like walking to food joints. Like I'm going to Subway after this, but who knows? Maybe on the path there I see interesting animal like a squirrel or a hawk or a bunny or something, and really analyze it. Don't just let it be a passerby because it's nothing that unusual. Let your creativity be found in the mundane, and I promise you, you'll start seeing it everywhere. And I think even a few weeks ago, I was talking about how I started seeing inspiration in like the patterns that my soup was making, my minestrone. It has this oil film on the top, and it creates these interesting swirls and bubbles. And I took pictures of it as reference, and you'll start to see it everywhere if you allow yourself to see it everywhere. You don't just limit yourself to the things that are obviously inspiring, like movies and entertainment.
I would also, if you have a younger sibling or a younger relative that's like really young, we're talking like 4 or 5, just talk to them about like, or like just play with them, like get to know like their how their brain works, because like a child's imagination is ridiculous. Like sometimes it's like too much, but it's still really neat to hear what a kid how creative they can be. I wouldn't recommend walking up to a random kid on the street though. That'd be you're not asking for a good time.
Yeah, don't ask them on the street unless you have like candy to offer or something.
No, don't. I have a feeling this person is probably taking you seriously.
Oh gosh, no. Yeah, don't actually do that. Unless if you have a van and ask them to get in.
Christian Trejo asks, how do you take the focus away from something that is more in the front of an illustration?
Oh gosh, contrast like crazy. Like even right now, this area here is a little muddy. Well, even before I added the highlights. Well, I say highlights loosely. This is where the light is kind of falling on. And I'll do more of a heavy highlight pass after this. But if you wanted to bring a subject matter forward, use lighter values against a darker value. So like, let's say I wanted to bring out this chin area. I'm going to add in some of this high value section. You can see how that contrast brings it forward. It's kind of hard because I'm trying to draw under the line art right now. So when I do the pass over the line art, that's when you'll see it even further. But always work your values to your advantage, and you'll see how easy it is to push and pull subject matter forward or backward just through simple adjustment of values. I mean, don't go crazy if you're trying to be more of like a realistic study, because you don't want to pull in unrealistic lighting scenarios. Like if I really wanted to make the underside of this chin stand out from the little head case he has here, I don't just want to add in a giant light value here, because then that throws off the lighting that I have in place so far. So for a one-to-one study like this, I do want to keep it more consistent. But if you are doing like a personal piece and you're doing more like fantastical lighting, you can have as much fun with that that contrast in those values as you want. And I would say even really go for it. All right, so even right now, I'm going to make a layer above the line art layer just so I can draw and paint over some of these areas. And you can see if I want this hooded area to have more of an influx of detail, I'll add in this lighter value. You can see how that separates it more if I add a darker value underneath, like that. Just from that contrast, it gives the illusion that this hooded area is above the darker area.
You got about 3 minutes.
All right.
Tejo wants to know, how do you notice if you put too much contrast in a piece?
Oh, that's a good question. If your values start to go crazy, like right now, actually the easiest way, don't use pure black, don't use pure white. And you'll for sure have more of a middle range of values going on. But you can still have quite a bit of over contrasting going on, even with more mid-tone values. So to correct that, look throughout your piece, and if you're purposely, like if I just grabbed black, for instance, and if I really wanted these eye sockets to be darker for whatever reason, actually I kind of like the way that looks. Let's let's give a different area. Even the area that we were working on before, if I really wanted to like contrast this, I was adding like whites and blacks and I was really pushing it further. This already feels wrong to me because the highlight should be coming on this area, so the highlight shouldn't even be falling that strong here. And it looks purposely trying to add contrast. And as much as I love contrast, you also have to rely on lost edges. This is something that I feel like I've been learning more recently, because you don't have to force the illusion of separation of form if it really isn't there. And if you allow yourself to do that, you will notice how more realistic it can look. So yeah, I guess you'll realize you're kind of burning your contrast too hard if the values are way out of whack. Yeah, I'm going to do a quick highlight pass before I go into color here.
All right. Bunko asks, did you guys ever have any bad drawing habits? For example, I used to make all my shadows solid black, even on traditional, and then blend stuff with no color shifting.
I feel like I still have a lot of bad at drawing habits. Like right now, I'm drawing with my wrist. That's considered a bad drawing habit. Although I would argue it to some extent. The other things that I would say I do incorrectly, like right now, I think I'm focusing on detailing too much when I should still be looking at the bigger picture. I think I'm kind of trying to rush it though, since I know I have a limited amount of time to get this finished. And I think my worst habit is over analyzing things and over rendering, because I get too methodical with the way I do things and I kind of lose the fun of and creativity of actually painting it. And I think that's something that I have to try to remember not to lose.
I'm trying to think of like my bad art habits. My worst art habit is starting and then not finishing. That's my number one. That's half an hour.
All right. Yeah, I know. I gotta pump up some of these values before we go into color though.
Cisco Punch 67 wants to know, Tim, how did you master contours in painting? Did you originally use shapes on an image, or is it just using contrast in colors? Contours like folds, wrinkles, bumps, muscle tones, etc.
I really like drawing traditionally. I've seen a lot of my work, and I think my favorite part of doing traditional stuff is drawing organics. So even, I think that's why sometimes with hard surface, I get really bored quickly just because it's supposed to be more clean and precise. But with organics, you can have fun. Like even this highlight right here feels way too clean and polished. I'm going to break that up with some texture like this. And well, I guess you're asking more of like contours. So yeah, I think that comes down to my love of contrast and pushing those forward. And don't be afraid to be bold with your contrast. It's something that I keep reemphasizing to my workshop right now and the students that I have, and they're really grasping it. Like I'm really impressed with my workshop this time around, and they're being very bold. It's like they're allowing themselves to be as bold as they want, and all they really needed was someone just to say you can. So you have it in you, and I think every artist has it in them. But I think that initial start is kind of scary because then you are working with more advanced techniques, but you can do it. Like just grab them and be like, no, you are mine. And I know exactly how I'm going to handle you. And it's just going to be a lot of work and it won't be perfect every single time, mind you. But if you just take your time and work with it, you'll get an end result that you're pleased with.
Sigil says, Joe, just do it. I don't know where my image of Shia LaBeouf went. I think I took it off my wall. I'll have to make another one. Alexander asks, what website or research should I use? Should I study for 2D game art?
Gosh, there are so many resources out there nowadays. I feel like you could find anything that you're looking for on the internet. So it depends on what you're looking for specifically. If you want to be a character artist, YouTube, DeviantArt, I mean, obviously CG Cookie, CGMA. There are so many different tutorial sites and education sites out there that you can go to, and or even I even want to say Patreon. You could even go to Patreon and find if there's an artist that you really kind of adhere to and you enjoy their style, just pay them 10, 20 bucks a month or whatever it is and just watch their tutorials and really analyze how they're handling their tools, their subject matter, the way they add in their shading, everything. And I think you'll be able to just pick up on it. Or hell, even just ask them through email or through Facebook messaging. And they won't always respond, mind you, but usually if you bug them enough, they'll eventually respond, but don't be overbearing. So what would be the number one website? Let's just start for game art. I would say, only because it's the one I started on, I would say DeviantArt. I would say that was a good place for me to post my images, kind of get into the routine of whenever I would finish a piece, I would post it. And I would rarely get any feedback, but it was just the idea of it felt complete then at that point. My pieces felt like I could move on to the next once I uploaded it somewhere. So that was kind of a release for me, and maybe that'll be one for you too. And there's so many resources on DeviantArt of like if you want to learn environments or characters or specific materials. I mean, it's all over DeviantArt.
How much more do you put on for the highlights?
5 minutes.
Okay. Because then you'll start running into cause I take it we're probably going to go to what, 4?
Hopefully not. The more I think about it, the contest thing shouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
5-10 minutes.
Micah Tisdale asks, hey Tim, are you going to see Captain America Civil War this week? Also, who is your favorite character design?
I think actually all of Von House will be going on Thursday night. We're going as all of my roommates and I. Oh, sorry, I call it Von House loosely. There's 6 of us living in a house right now. We're all artists, and one of them is, I would say, a pretty big Captain America fan. And I'm pretty excited about this one because I think what was the last one? Winter Soldier. That was one of the few superhero movies I watched last year that I really thought did a really nice job of kind of balancing the story and the action. It wasn't just all action, and the story was kind of just like a second thought. It actually did feel very well thought out and played out. So yeah, I'm excited for Winter Soldier. Oh, what's my favorite character design in Winter Soldier or in Captain America? Uh, I do like Bucky. And you know what? I actually do like how they kind of rendered Cap's suit and the new things that they did to it compared to just like the solid blue one that you saw in the comics. I feel like the way that they added more of a realistic touch was really nice. So I do like that too.
We gotta get tickets. We'll probably have to do it tonight.
Yeah.
Cisco Punch 67 asks Tim, when you do grayscale, how many light to dark swatches do you use?
Light to dark switches right here. I would say 6. Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies per whatever I'm working on, but in this case, I usually don't do more than like 5 or 6, I would say.
Eric asks, what are your couple favorite digital and traditional artists?
Traditional by far would be Alan Williams. I think even though his subject matter is so creature and organic based, I mean that's why I love it. I'm definitely more of a character person. I love seeing people do character concept art. So I think it's kind of funny that my favorite traditional artist doesn't really do that much character stuff. But I've met him a few times. He really is an inspiration to me in every single way, not just as an artist or the few things that I've read about how he explains his process and just being how patience is such a virtue, and I really do believe that too. Uh, but in the way that he treats people, the when I met him at Spectrum, he really took the time, and I know I say this a lot, but he talked to me for like a half hour because I just kept asking questions, and he never gave me the impression of like go away or I don't want to talk to you anymore. He was very polite, soft spoken, and he was very open about his process, the pencil he uses, his recommendations, everything. So I have a lot of respect, and I think it's really cool when an artist that you really look up to, because usually it's like the masters of the old age. I mean, they're all deceased. So it's kind of cool nowadays where you can meet these masters of digital art or traditional art, and they're alive, and you can actually meet them and ask them questions. So I love that we live in this day and age where that's a possibility. In terms of digital, I feel like mine switches all the time. I don't think it's been consistent ever. Like when I first started school, it was this artist called Feverworm, and just through the years, I feel like it's progressed. And then at one point, it was Loesch, and I think it's good. I think it's good to always have this evolving palette of taste of things that you like and dislike, and how you see how those artists grow and how maybe some of them kind of fall behind. And I think it's an interesting process. Oh, Peter Moorbacher, I would say his stuff is usually always inspiring to see what he's created. And yeah, I would say right now my number one inspiration, it would probably be Peter actually, just because I've been working more on my swordplay illustrations, and I've been very curious to see how he pumps out his angelariums to the amount of quantity that he does. And I think that I find that inspiring. And just the way that he handles his work with a very professional uh, vision, and the way that he presents them, I've always really liked too. What about you, Joe?
Um, I don't know. I completely agree with you on the digital thing. Or just like sit there. It's like, who's the flavor of the week? like,
Yeah, no
like,
joke.
like, like what? Like who am I seeing more of now? And then like they become more apparent to you. Oh man, that's rough. I mean, I have places in my heart for like as far as like traditional, I have a lot of comic book artists that I looked up to and grew up with that I really admire. Um, do I have an absolute just like number one favorite? No. And I think the list is too long to, you know, go over. I mean, as far as digital goes, I mean, I love Mr. Jack. I love Christopher New Christopher Newman. I think his stuff is really cool. His name is Vivipid or something like that. Um, I'll post a link as well. I mean, Jimbo Box, really cool guy. Really love his work. I mean, I'm super inspired by Galki's colors. Uh, I mean, and then I'm trying to think of like just names that I could list. Like, I'm a huge fan of Joe Mad and Paul Richards. You know how they do their character designs and everything, and just like so many artists.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I
That's
think
such
at that
a.
point. Oh, sorry, you go.
I was gonna say it's such a loaded question.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I think I'm at the point where I'm going to start adding color. Some areas that I think look a bit blurry, like on this chin, even this light shouldn't go that far around.
Tidgel says
But
everyone knows you want to say Tidgel is your favorite digital artist. Don't hide it.
I didn't want to play favorites though.
Right.
All right. So now that I have my grayscale image here, and for the most part, we got some good value ranges going on. I think some things could be pushed further, but for the most part, we're going to run with this. So the way that most people go from going to grayscale to color is you create a new layer, change the layer mode to color, and then you paint in. So in this case, he has, I'm going to try to match these colors a little better. Actually more yellowy. Actually, maybe I'll do a full pass so you can see. I chose this color, which you can see is a very light value, and it's kind of on a yellow hue, yellow-orange. You can see if we paint the whole thing, our grayscale image just became like a dirty vanilla. It was like a French vanilla, really. And then he has this orange color, so I'm going to put that color. I'll put all the colors I use on the side here. Then on his hood, it's like this orange. It's like a red-orange, like there. You can see what that looks like here, but if I go back to my color blend mode, I choose that same color. You can see how that affects our image differently because the values will still stay intact. It is the hue that will be different. And if you want to look up I should have done that before I did the stream. There are exact terms on exactly what they affect and how they affect it. And the other one that's similar to the color is the hue. But you can say if we change, right now, if we change this from color to hue, you can see how you can barely even see any of the, or not hue, I'm sorry, saturation. Oh no, it was hue. What am I talking about? And you can see how nothing happened because we're working on a grayscale image. But when you're working with something that already has color, if you want to change the color of it quickly, but still not affect the values, that's how you would do it. So let's say, change that back to color, create a new layer, make it hue. Let's say we wanted his cap to be blue and not orange. You can see how you can quickly change it, but the values are all still in set and you're not changing anything besides the hue. So hue is usually what you do after you do a color base. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the color everywhere else that it needs to here. That's orange.
You good for a question?
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan Allen asks, what conventions would you recommend for a concept artist?
Spectrum. Fantastic Art Live. That is, I think that is my favorite convention. And it has such a focus on the masters of digital and traditional art of today's age in fantasy and sci-fi, mostly fantasy though, I would say. And the people that attend there are people that like I I look up to as like a one day when I'm older. Hopefully that's the level I would want to achieve. It's kind of like if what's a good comparison? It's like if you would consider yourself a Bulbasaur, you're meeting a bunch of Venusaurs. So you look at these artists that have gone through years of experience and they've leveled up so much that they are such a powerful artist and presence. And what's cool is the convention itself still isn't that big yet. So you can go up to, like what I said before with Alan Williams, you can go up to them and they might have no line there. You can just talk to them freely and you don't feel pressured to leave. I mean, at some point you should leave them alone, but you can just keep talking to them and ask them questions or really get a feel for, pick their brain a bit. And it was really cool being able to meet these really, really good artists and kind of pick their brains. The other good ones I would say, I think just in terms of entertainment, San Diego Comic-Con was by far the most thrilling just in terms of the size and the amount of just money that was spent on these the booths. I was like amazed where there's like 100-foot dragon just chilling in one of the booths, or the next one has a giant Lego castle that you can walk in, and it's this crazy event where it's packed and everyone is super hyped about everything that is going on there. There's a lot of celebrities. I got to see Jessica Alba, which is kind of strange and bizarre when you start to see a celebrity in person. It's like, oh, that's right, you're a real flesh and blood person. So that was really cool. And then I'm kind of a sucker for the local ones that we have. So the C2E2, I really like. ASEN, I would say those are my local favorites.
I know a really big one that's not stateside though is Trojan was a unicorn, or Trojan is a unicorn. That one's huge. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other ones that people have mentioned in the past, just for strictly concept art though, not just like a anime or art convention or a gaming convention. It was just, I'm pretty sure Trojan Rose Unicorn is just strictly concept artists. I think there's one more, and I'm sure that there are other artists out there who are just like trying to start up their own conventions now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure in the next couple of years we'll start seeing more and more conventions for just like stricter like styles of art. Bunko asks, Tim and Joe, was there any big revelations like mind-blowing stuff that made you change the way you draw?
Yeah, I feel like that happens like twice a year. I think one of them was being introduced to a texture brush, and as you can see, I've been using more of a texture brush ever since. And then one year it would be like when I was first starting out, it was learning about the overlay and multiply layer. I kind of went crazy with that, a little too crazy actually, I would say, but it was a good experimentation process of learning to when not to use multiply and when to use multiply, because you can definitely overburn an image pretty quickly with overlay and multiply, so you gotta be careful with that. What was another more recent one? Oh, contrast. I think with my traditional stuff, I learned just from looking at Alan Williams, the idea of contrast, and that's a way to push form and values out rather than just relying on having one area end, and like the shadow. So even, here's a good example. Like here, I can pump up more contrast on the bottom here. It would separate this earpiece more from the rest of it just through a lighter value. And I think the last one was color. I learned so much about color last year, and the idea of, that's something that I've always messed with, but the idea of adding contrast through hue or saturation, not through brightness or value. And I think that was a kind of like a mind-blowing thing for me to learn when I learned it.
The revelation for me was the way to break down forms into boxes and cubes. Not just through the perspective course, but I did a mentorship with somebody, and he went through and explained to me that, like, how to do that. Because I've always known about it, and I've watched so many videos, and it wasn't until this guy was like, "No, this is how you break it down like this," and then for some reason it clicked in my brain, and I was like, "Oh," and then from there I was like, "Oh, I can just do proportions really easily this way now," and for me that really like kind of like blew my mind, or like how to rotate a box in my brain was really cool to do it all just based on one ellipse. I think that was one of those things that just like it like just clicked in my head. But I mean, like, yeah, like Tim said, if your mind isn't constantly being blown, then I think there's a problem. Because you should always be looking for different ways to do art. I mean, you should focus. I think that's important as well. But after you think you're satisfied with what you learned from that, I think you should also try something new, just to try it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so right now I'm adding color on top of the pre-established color that we laid in. And this kind of goes back to the point I was saying about how you can't just rely on that color mode to do the work for you. So even here you can see how I'm adding more details and texture. And this is what will make going from grayscale to color easier, is knowing that it's more of like a foundation pass of color. And you don't have to worry about the lighting so much at this point because it's pretty established, or it should be pretty established. And from here, I should just be focusing on detailing and adding as much texture as appropriate for what I'm trying to recreate here. So I think pretty much, I think you guys can kind of grasp what I'm going to be doing from this point forward if I was just to go ahead and keep detailing this further. But I want to show the other way of doing this before we go ahead and announce the contest winners. So I'm going to show the other way that you can go about doing this. I'm going to remove the color here, make a folder for it. All right, so another thing that you could do, make a new layer, and this is the more crazy version, but I've used it a few times now, and it's kind of crazy to see the color combinations that you can get. Okay, so you go to image, or no, you go to layer, I'm sorry, layer, new adjustment layer, then you want to go to gradient map. Choose OK. And right now, nothing changed because we have a grayscale gradient map. You click it, and I have a few saved, but I'm going to show you how to go about this process. Now, this is something that my friend Key showed me. She's on the web as Gawky, but essentially you change the gradient type to noise, and you can change the color model. I like using LAB, and what you can do is kind of, if you want to play it more risky, there's this randomize button down here, and you click it, and it'll give you these crazy color options to work with, and a lot of them will be bad. And I think that's something that you have to go into this knowing that it's not going to be perfect right away. Ooh, that's kind of cool. So I'm looking for something that excites me as an artist when I see these colors, and oh man, I like that. And I think I can work with further. So let's say this one, and I actually kind of like this one, so I'm going to save it on up here. So you can see I have a few that I've saved before. So I really like this. Now, obviously, this is crazy color. It almost looks like you just put a filter over it, which we don't really want that. So what you can do is you go to the opacity of that layer and turn it down. Even like, I know Key usually keeps hers at like 15 to 25, something around here. You can see before with the grayscale and without. So kind of turned our very dark shadows purple. And then let's say you do it again, choose your gradient map. And you can build up your colors this way. Now, eventually you have to get to a point where you want to start painting on some of that, these new crazy colors that you're laying on top, because otherwise it's going to look like a mess. And you want to make sure that as you're going through that you understand that you can't just rely on this. So from this point forward, now mind you, this is a very different way of going about your process. But from this point, I would try to blend in the colors that have been established here and make them work. So in the areas that need more contrast, or you know what, I might even make a levels here, because some of those darker values like the eye socket or the shadow out here, I actually really enjoy that they're more of a neutral, but I'm going to push them further just so I can see them more clearly. Something like that. And then I'll work with it further. Because if you really are, if you really aren't digging how crazy of a color palette this is, and if you like having some of those set values that kind of give you more of a traditional feel to like where the values are set, then I would use this weird color adjustment as more of a foundation that you paint on top of. Like in the cracks of here. And you can work up your image this way. Now, I don't want you guys relying on this solely, because this, as awesome as it is and it forces you to experiment with new colors, sometimes it can be a way to get a color palette that is interesting without you knowing why or how that process went about. So I still think it's important to learn the importance of color and how to work with color, because you can't just rely on a filter or a gradient map to do the work for you. And I think the reason Key uses it and it works so well for her is because she has such an understanding, like an ingrained understanding of her colors and the palette that she works with, that when she sees these crazy color combinations, she knows how to work it so that it's not so crazy looking and it has more of a purpose behind the colors that are being used there. So I think maybe I think I'm only going to do like a 5-minute or more on this, and then we'll get into our contest announcements.
Just Daiki says or asks, how do you choose the color you want to put over the grayscale, and does it have to match the value?
Oh, like for this guy, since I'm using reference, he has that orange and vanilla coloring to him. So I guess it was pretty easy figuring out what colors to paint over. Oh, actually, you know what? I could show you guys. Let me hide all this. So I'm going to bring back Creepy Doll. And one of the things this is something that I think you just learn over time the more you do it. Red is my favorite color to work with, and this doll has a red coat down here. So if I did this grayscale image and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do my color adjustment, change it to color, and add red, the red that I'm about to lay down is not the red that I would want. I like really deep scarlet crimson looking reds. And this is like a wet tomato paste. It's a very unappealing red for me to work with. And that's because the value underneath of it is so light. So red is actually a darker value if you want more of like a blood red. So let's say we'll grab this like dark gray, and on a layer underneath of that color layer, I'm gonna go ahead and add this in. You can see how now it just has become so much more bloody red. And that is something that I would much rather work with. And you can see how it's so dark. But then when we turn on our color layer, it actually creates more of a scarlet red. And that's what I'm looking for. So how do you know what color you want to put over your grayscale? This will come through trial and error. And even like on him, I know he had like this grainy sand color hair. So I knew to lay in more of a neutral value. Oops, let me grab my color layer. So when you lay it on, you can see how it looks pretty light, but the value that I was working over was pretty similar to the face. And this will honestly just come through trial and error. So keep testing it out. If you're someone that wants to work primarily with Grayscale, then I would definitely focus on your values first. And don't worry about color until after. Let me hide the doll. Because the second test that I did was this guy, and it kind of fell under the same thing. Where was my... Oh yeah, so when I started to add color, I knew that like the vanilla on the top here should be a lighter value than the orangey color on the side here. And then as I added the color, you can see how they look like they have a similar value to it. You can tell that there's no set lighting in it yet because the colors look very matte. But if I remove the grayscale, you can see it with such a difference in value here. And what was the other thing I did with this? Oh, this was an example of, let's say I already had a color established on our painting, and then I used Key's image adjustment layer. You can see that at 100%, it creates this really crazy neon color combination, and I really dig the colors going on here. I rarely like hyper saturation like this, unless if the colors have such a blend and harmony to them. So I kind of dig this, but obviously, if I'm going for more of a realistic take, I'm going to turn the opacity way down. And you can see that layer before and after, how it kind of neutralizes the shadow areas a bit, and it added these purples to the shadow areas. And then in my other areas, there's more of a blue tint to it. So it might be a way of just tinting your images if you're looking for a way to adjust your colors to not look so boring. And then I just started painting over, and it creates that whole process. So on, now it's so crazy looking back at this one. So don't feel like you have to rely on these if you really just want to create crazy color patterns. That's how you can do it with these adjustment layers. But turn some of these off. But let's say you just want to lay down your colors first. Where are my colors? Oh, I've created too many layers. Oh shoot, I might have deleted it. But anyways, don't be afraid with color. I think experimenting with color is the best way to start understanding and learning what color combinations work well and what combination colors do not work well at all. So keep playing with it and have fun with color. I think that's the best advice I can give you guys. All right, so I think I'm gonna leave this one out. I might finish it a bit more. It definitely needs quite a bit of touch up, but essentially that is my tutorial on how to take something from grayscale to color, those two different ways. And we are going to now get ready to announce the contest winners. So let me go ahead. I'm going to move this over because Joe has all of the images ready to go. So I think I'm going to kind of take over the microphone here. All right, Joe, you want to get those ready then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then focus on your screen.
I'm focusing. Nothing's happening. Hold on. Let me close out of.
And I just want to say once again, I mean, this contest is my favorite that we've had on CG Cookie. The entries were awesome. They were inspiring, really, just to see you guys be creative with like simple limitations that we gave you guys, and the way that you interpreted them and then made it your own was really cool to see.
All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna have just the image up, and we're just gonna go straight from the community award first.
Okay.
I know my screen isn't showing right now. I just I want it to be like a reveal.
All right, let me get my. Do I got my drum roll ready? Which one's the drum roll? Is this it? Oh, am I not able to hear it?
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, why did it do that one?
That was like a. There you go. That's the one.
Oh my gosh, there's a leg on it. Oh gosh, how many times did I click that?
Uh-oh.
Okay, I think we're good. Let me do one more test. Hey, okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, so are we doing the community one first?
Yeah.
Or you go ahead, take charge, and then I'll be in charge of the drum roll.
Okay, so you just do the drum roll.
No, you gotta build it up. You'll be like, okay, the winner of the. Okay, you got it.
Yeah. Okay,
right.
so the winner of the community award for the Battered Bunny contest is Ben KG.
Do I get there we go.
Oh no. Okay. Hold on.
And the bronze award goes to Jay Servey.
Yeah. Sorry, it's like on a timer on that.
Oh, why?
I don't know. Because it's a slideshow.
PCs. Should have just done it on my Mac.
Right. Okay. So let me just make this really big. So that way everyone can see it.
All right, go back to the community one.
All right. Hide. There you go.
So this was kind of crazy because you guys had to look through 170 entries, and there were likes scattered all around. But this one won like literally by a hair, and I say that as a pun. I think it ended at 53 likes, was it?
This one was, yes, 53.
So yeah, big congrats, and you win the community award. And all the awards that we're going to be, or if you are the winner, we will be sending out an email in the next few days letting you know what you win and how you get it. Because some of them we have to send you the Amazon gift card, so we have to have your address to send it to you guys. So that is something that we will prompt you guys for in email. All right.
Okay. Drum roll for the bronze award, please.
The unexpected, who knows who it's going to be.
And the bronze award goes to Jay Servey. How's that? Was that good?
Oh, geez. That's such like a digital clap. Like that doesn't even sound authentic. But yeah, for Jay Servey, I think this was one of those images that it felt like a poster to me. And I love the color combination and the isolation of this like hot pink magenta. The way that you worked it in throughout all of the characters that you have here, I think was a really nice touch. And even though I think the main character itself isn't as dynamic as some of the other entries, I think the overall composition and the story that I felt like I was able to get just from the single image was so strong that this was one that I definitely wanted. I voted for myself, and I'm really glad to see you included not only the Battered Bunnies, but you also include like the villain with the canine. And I love that contrast with the cools and the warms. So really well done. I think this is one of my favorite poster type submissions we've ever gotten in terms of a CG cookie contest. So really nice job. And yeah, thanks again for entering. Okay, that's just, I just.
All right. Now for the silver award.
So the silver award goes to I am not. This was one of those that was submitted, I want to say, towards the middle of the contest entries. And at first glance, I didn't see all the details that were in it. So I don't know if I took the time to really appreciate it. But then as we were doing the voting selection and I looked through each of them and I tried to like pick up on the subtle details that they added, I really appreciated the blood versus the white contrast. And the way that you did the blood on the back of the logo, it felt like blood that was smeared across a wall. And it then hit me, you had the blood staining the floor. and you had it as if she was walking through it on the soles in the heels of her feet. It was collected on there, and the shoelace. I think for some reason that really impressed me. The way that it kind of seeped up, it like bled up the shoelace as if, you know, this shoelace was dragging in the blood, and it kind of absorbs up fabric. So I thought that was a really nice touch. And even like her slight fingerprint of blood on the bat, really nice. I think this is one of those that had a very controlled color palette, and you were very specific that you didn't want to go outside of the range of like this white, peach, red, and violet-y color. This very light violet, and that control and that precision I think was something that I really appreciated. So this was one that was really tough to against some of the other ones. I think this was voted on a few times throughout the crew members, but this is definitely one that I am proud to showcase as our silver winner for the CG Cookie Contest.
All right. Now for the feature presentation. I mean, the first place golden award goes to...
Oh, oops, wrong one.
Jay Santiago.
So this one has so many different elements to it that make it the winner for me. And just even throughout the crew, this was definitely one of the top voted ones. And this is one of those images where if you look at it, I feel like every single time you look at it, you pick up something new. The thing that I really appreciated was the creativity in the way that you handled the mask, the twin mohawk, and how that was the ears for the rabbit, the little bolts that were on the shoes that she's wearing to represent the actual claws that a bunny have, or like the little claws that rabbits have. And her pose, she's jumping, she's hopping, she's literally hopping like a rabbit. And the tattoo integration was great. So, oh, and then the dynamic of the pose, like I felt the story just by looking at the image, and it was rendered all around very beautifully. So big shout out to Just Santiago. You are the winner of this Battered Bunny contest. And actually, Joe, do you have anything to say about this one?
I mean, you pretty much nailed everything on the head with what I was going to say. I mean, for me, I personally love super dynamic poses that still show the character. Like we still could, you could give this to a modeler, a 3D modeler, and they could still do it, because like nothing's really hidden. You know what I mean? Like you can still see how the boots are made. You know, these shoulder pads are in clear view. The mask is all in clear view. I could see a lot of people wanting to just make this a 3D model and they could without having to do a turnaround for it. That's one of the things that kind of stuck out for me. And then, yeah.
And even now I look at the spark effects on the left side, that was handled very well. Like you have the ones that are in focus and out of focus and the placement of them. You can just tell it was well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
So very well done. Congratulations.
All right. And now for the honorable mentions.
Oh. So, like I said, this is one of the hardest contests to judge because with so many entries and so much quality to judge from, this was really tough. So these were the other ones that came up just short. They were voted on the crew members, but didn't reach enough points to reach the top 3. But the reason I like all of these is they each feel like a character, like a unique character to me. And the one that really stuck out to me was Suri, or the one at the end. Even though it has this very girly touch to it, I feel that character. It almost seems like I could see that in a video game or in a movie, and it feels complete as a character. I understand her personality, or at least, you know, just from first impressions. I love the disco bat. I think that's super cool. The color palette that you used was very coherent, and it was definitely in harmony with the other colors that you chose. And this is a good example of restricting yourself to a color palette and a mood of a color palette and only working with that. Because even the blonde hair that she has, the corset, the darker colors, they all still have this warm pink feel. It's like a bubblegum pop feel to it, and you feel that all the way through the character. And I think the same could be said about each one that was here, and especially with, I know Joe was saying how we read the backstories, and for Joe, that one stuck up to him was the McKinney one, and I believe his name was Zombie. Actually, Joe, do you want to say this one?
Oh yeah, no. If I'm correct, this is Andrew McKinney's, who is probably watching right now. The, I mean, I loved this backstory, about him being, in the ER and him not being a really, like, he's kind of sick. He's got disease, but like he still goes out and he still fights the fight after meeting a really good friend of his who was in the Battered Bunnies, and then is like, yeah, I'm gonna do it too, and I'm not gonna get slowed down. And then he makes this really cool suit that he stitches together, and he wears a mask. To me, I was like, this is really cool. I really enjoyed the design for that one.
Yeah. So I think overall, this was a really hard contest to choose from. I do think the first place winner for me was a standout winner, but like I said, there was so much good quality throughout all of the entries that it was really awesome to see and be able to look through. So if you guys liked this contest, I hope that you learned something just in the process, but also know that we do these on a seasonal basis. So our next one will be in the summer, probably mid-July will be when we announce it, or early July. So stay tuned for our next one. And yeah, thank you guys for submitting. And I think that's all we have for the stream today. Thank you guys for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week. I think that's all I got to say. Is there something I'm forgetting?
That's my mama.
No, I think we're good. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week. All right. Bye.
Bye.